All right, guys, welcome back. And we're going to be looking at some more questions with regards to simple factorization. Now, remember that the solution of these questions, once it's simple factorization, the solution of these questions is normally one step and one mark. So it's pretty simple. So it's a very easy part of factorization when you're dealing with simple factorization. So you shouldn't feel stressed about it, because it's just a one-step solution problem. So let's take a look at some examples here. So here are some questions that we want to do. And the first one says 15x minus 35. And again, you're factorizing, and what you want to do is look at the two terms, 15x and 35, and determine what is the highest common factor. Now, this doesn't have any letters in it, so you know that the highest common factor is just going to be a number here, because the x is only in this term, so x couldn't be a common factor of this. So it's just number, all right? It's just a number that's going to be outside the bracket. So the highest common factor here would be, it seems to be 5. So if I factor out the 5 here, what would I have inside the bracket? So the highest common factor of 15x and 35 should come out here. So my question is now, what should be inside the bracket? Now, what times 5 is going to give me 15x? And that's going to be 3x. And you put back the minus here, of course. And 5 times what is going to give me 35? And that answer should be 7. So that would be 15x minus 35 factorized. Let's look at the second question. Again, we have 4 and we have a 2p here. We know it's minus 2p, but I'm just stressing on the positivity of the two terms first of all to factor it out. So 4 and negative 2p, I'm just going to refer to it for now as 4 and 2p and ask you what is the highest common factor. There are no letters in this term, so you can't have a letter or letter P in the highest common factor, because there's no P here, so it must just be a number like in this case. So the highest common factor of 4 and 2p is going to be 2. That should be outside the bracket. And then you're going to ask yourself what needs to be inside here to give you back the original thing. So 2 times 2 gives you back the 4, the minus sign comes back, and 2 times what gives me 2p, and that is simply going to be p. So 4 minus 2p factorized is 2 and open bracket 2 minus p close bracket. Let's take a look at number 3. So we have 7p cubed plus 14p. Now we have the letters in both terms. So and the common letter in both terms is p. So that's going to come out. But let's focus on the number first. We have 7 and 14. So what would be the highest common factor of 7 and 14 first of all? And that answer would be 7. And then when you look at the letters P, Q, and P, what is common in P, Q, and P, in terms of it being the highest common factor, that would be P. So we will end up with 7P outside the bracket. And then in the bracket, we ask ourselves what we need to multiply 7P by to get by the original thing. So 7P times what is going to give me 7P cubed, and that is simply going to be Q. And 7 times what is going to give me positive 14P. 7p times what is going to give me positive 14p, and that is simply going to be 2. So the answer to question 3 should be 7p open bracket q plus 2 close bracket. Why? Because 7p times q is 7pq, and 7p times 2 is 14p. So it's about identifying the highest common factor of the terms to put outside the bracket all the time. The highest common factor must be outside the bracket all the time. All right, let's look at a couple more questions. All right, so we're looking at these two here, and let's look at number 4. Again, we have 9x squared y plus 15xy, and we're thinking of the highest common factor of these two terms. So of course you start with the number. So what would be the highest common factor of 9 and 15? When you look at it, that simply would be 3. The highest common factor of 9 and 15 would be 3. Now let's look at x squared and x. The highest common factor of x squared and x would simply be x. Now let's look at y and y. The highest common factor of y and y would be y. So this is what is going to be the highest common factor of these two terms. All right? You take your time and you do it. The highest common factor of 9x squared y and 15xy would be 3xy. All we need to do now is figure out what needs to be in the bracket. And how you do that is ask yourselves, what do I multiply 3xy to get back 9x squared y? And that simply would be 3x, because 3xy times 3x is going to give me back 9x squared y. Why? Because 3 times 3 is a 9, x times x is x squared, and the y comes back there. Also, you're going to ask yourself, what times 3xy is going to give me back 15xy? So that simply would be 5, because 3xy times 5 is going to give me back 15xy. 3 times 5 is 15, and the xy comes back right there. Now, looking at question 5, it's more interesting than the others, but the procedure is the same. Now, we have two fractions here, and the procedure is no different. To make it easier for you, all you need to do is just focus on the numerator first. All right, so we know we're going to have a fraction outside, and we know we're going to have two fractions inside the bracket, and of course the minus sign here comes back. So just focus on the numerator. We have 6 and we have 12, and we need to ask ourselves, what's common in 6 and 12? What's the highest common factor of 6 and 12? That would be 6. So we know that 6 is on the outside. So 6 times what is going to give me back the 6? So that's going to be 1 here. And 6 times what is going to give me back 12 is 2 right there. All right? And then now you focus on the denominator. So we have p squared and pq. And the question is, what's the highest common factor of p squared and pq? Well, that simply would be p. And then you're going to ask yourself, p times what here is going to give me back p squared? And that is simply going to be p. And p times what here is going to give me back pq, and that is simply going to be q. So we just approach the problem like that, and just focus on the numerators first and then the denominators. Let's do another one similar to that. Let's take a look at this. So we have again two fractions, and of course when we factorize this, we're going to end up with a fraction outside, numerator and denominator, as well as fractions in the bracket. And because we have plus here, plus is going to come back. So again, we're going to focus on the numerators. So we have 3uv and we have 12v. What is going to be the highest common factor of 3uv and 12v? And that looks like it's going to be 3v. So if we take 3v outside here, the question is 3v times what is going to give me back 3uv, and that is simply u. 3v times u is going to give me back 3uv. Now 3v times what is going to give me back 12v, and that is simply 4. So I've taken care of the numerators in the result. So I'm going to cover this now, numerators, and focus on the denominator. So we have 5 and 15. And you can clearly reason out that the highest common factor of 5 and 15 is 5. So 5 would come here, and you're going to ask yourself, 5 times what is going to give me back 5? And that would simply be 1. And then 5 times what is going to give me 15? And that is simply going to be 3. And that is going to be your answer for question 6. So you can always check. So 3v times u is going to give me back 3uv. 3v times 4 is going to give me 12v. 5 times 1 is going to give me 5, and 5 times 3 is going to give me 15, and I'm good to go. So I hope you guys found this video insightful, and I'll see you guys on the next video.